Hi everyone, it's Clarice, and today my shelves are kinda semi-rainbowed out, but that's not what this video is about. Anyway, today I'm going to be doing the Netflix book tag. This tag was created by Accio Books and I was tagged by Rachel Hobson, so I will link both of their videos for this tag down below. We don't actually have Netflix in the Philippines, but that's okay. There are questions, I can answer questions even if I don't have Netflix. So moving on to the tag. Recently watched, last book you finished reading. It's Lock and Key Volume 4, Keys to the Kingdom. I've been reading this series this past week. I'm actually finding myself enjoying the horror of the comic book series, though it isn't completely horror. There are also a lot of fantastical elements to it, which I'm also really enjoying. Overall, it's just a really intense plot and a really cool world and concept, and it's done so well, drawn so beautifully, and I am obsessed with the series at the moment. Top picks. A book or book series that has been recommended to you based on a book or series that you previously read. I suppose for this question, I could say the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin. When I still hadn't read this series, almost everyone recommended it to me just because it's the Song of Ice and Fire, it's a Game of Thrones, everyone loves the Game of Thrones. Though they didn't necessarily recommend it to me because of the books I previously read. Like, one person recommended it to me and really took into consideration the type of books that I read and what I like. I guess if you like complex fantasy worlds, you'd probably like A Song of Ice and Fire. Though some people were less helpful. You like high fantasy? You should read A Song of Ice and Fire. You like massive books? You should read A Song of Ice and Fire. You like reading? You should read A Song of Ice and Fire. Recently added, the last book you bought. I actually just got home from the mall, and since I was in the mall, I of course had to pass through the bookstore. And since I was in a bookstore, it was very likely that I felt the urge to buy a book, which I did today. And the book I bought today was Diary by Chuck Palahniuk. It's so new that it's still in the plastic that I bought it in. I have a friend that really enjoys Chuck Palahniuk's work, and this is actually one of the books that he really recommended that I read, especially if I'm starting with Chuck Palahniuk, even though I have read one of his books already. I don't actually know much at all what this is about, which is, I think, the best way to go into books. Just get a good recommendation from someone you trust and go into it blind. Popular on Netflix, books that everyone knows about. Name 2 that you've read and 2 that you have no real interest in reading. For the books that I've already read, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline and the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. Reading Ready Player One, as I've said multiple times on this channel, was probably the most fun reading experience I ever had. It's a book about a virtual reality world, and it's done in the best way it can possibly be done. It's really fun, it's really action-packed, it's really intense, and it's really geeky, and I love it. Next is the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. This year especially, this book has been just all over BookTube. Mistborn is a high fantasy series with an amazing world, some of my favorite characters, and the most interesting magic system that I've ever come across. It's just amazing. Okay, I love Mistborn and Brandon Sanderson so much. For the 2 books/series that I have no interest in reading, I hope that none of you get offended by this because these are relatively popular series. Those series are The Selection and Anna and the French Kiss. I know these series are very, very well loved on BookTube, and I'm not saying that I think that they're bad book series. I'm just saying that based on what I heard from people that enjoy it and what I heard from people that dislike it, the elements of these books that people seem to dislike are things that I don't particularly enjoy in books at all personally. And the things that people did like about the books are things that I also personally don't really prioritize. I'm not dissing these books, just based on hearing what people liked and disliked from them. I just don't think personally they're for me. Comedies. A funny book, The Martian by Andy Weir. It starts with a cruise landing on Mars, is followed by a crazy dust storm, which leads to the crew's evacuation, which results in them leaving Mark Watney thinking that he's dead, and then later on realizing once they're already way too far that he's actually still alive, left on Mars to fend for himself. It sounds like some really intense stuff, and it is, but it's also probably one of the funniest books that I've ever read, just because Mark Watney has just the best sense of humor. I literally laughed out loud a few times while I was reading this book. I mean, look at all those sticky notes. Not all of them were me laughing, but a lot of them were me laughing. Dramas, a character who was a drama queen / king. It took me a while to think of this, but once this character crossed my mind, I just couldn't give this question to anybody else. That character is Marvin from the Hitchhiker's Guide series by Douglas Adams. Marvin, the paranoid android, the most depressed character that I've ever come across. If you've read this series, or I guess watched the movie, though I don't know, I haven't watched the movie, I guess you'd probably know what I'm talking about. Animated, a book with cartoons on the cover. I mean, I probably could have gotten one of my graphic novels, but I just want to mention this book, Darth Vader and Son. If you haven't seen any of the pictures from this book floating around on the internet, you should look for them. They're cute and awesome and Star Wars-y. Watch it again, a book or book series that you want to reread. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This was my favorite book of all time for a very long time. I still consider it one of my favorite books, but I haven't read it in a few years. I'm pretty sure all of you know what The Book Thief is, but it's basically a book that follows the childhood of this little German girl growing up in Nazi Germany. This book made me so emotional the first time I read it, and I want to reread it to see if it'll make me just as emotional the second time around, or if there are parts of it that I may have missed and would understand better reading it the second time around. So I hope I can get around to rereading this, and hopefully soon. Documentaries, a non-fiction book that you would recommend to everyone. I haven't actually read a lot of non-fiction books, though I'm hoping to change that soon. But at the moment, I'm listening to the autobiography of Neil Patrick Harris. Neil Patrick Harris's life is fascinating, and he's also just really funny. And even though I haven't finished this book yet, I would highly recommend it, especially in audiobook format. Action and Adventure, an action-packed book. For this, I am sharing Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. I remember just flying through this book. I read it in about 2 sittings, like half a book per sitting. This book is set in the future. All these random people are suddenly getting superpowers, though unfortunately, these people aren't superheroes. They're actually really violent and really selfish. These superpowered beings called epics are basically taking over and putting the world into utter chaos. It's action-packed, it's even kind of funny at times, and it's definitely a lot of fun to read. New releases, a book that just came out or is about to come out that you cannot wait to read. Shadows of Self, the second book in the Wax and Wayne Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I've already talked about how much I love Mistborn, and the first book of the second series was a lot of fun with some really awesome characters. It's definitely different from the original trilogy, but I still love it, and I'm just looking forward to any new books that he releases. Max, Tag Some People. This time I actually prepared and thought of people to tag before I started filming. So the people I'm tagging are the Pastel Rose and I Believe in Nargles 522. I really hope you do this tag video, and if you do, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what your answers to these questions are. Anyway, please like this video if you liked it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!